Namaste, yogis. Welcome to another episode of How Yoga Changed My Life, a podcast. This is Adrienne.
And Mia.
And we are here in studio. I say studio, but it's my house. We're in the podcast loft. And Mia and I are really excited to share this week's episode with you.
Yeah, this past week we interviewed David. David is the founder and CEO of DoYogaWithMe. He is our first international guest.
I know.
Right?
Well, I guess Allie kind of would be an international guest because she's from, wasn't she from Canada?
Yikes.
Shit, I can't remember.
Cut this out. No, I'm just kidding.
No, maybe.
No, I think also this speaks to really the comedy in this episode. Something I super appreciated
Yes.
was David's comedy. Like, he is such a funny guy, but just in a different manner. I hope it comes across in the episode. Otherwise, we're going to have to publish the video. But we had such a fun time. We laughed. There's always a little bit of fear when it comes to interviewing someone you don't know.
Oh, for sure.
Because you're like, what if this is just some wackadoo?
Exactly.
or a waste of our time, or we don't connect. Like, there's a lot of pressure.
Totally. A lot of pressure. And with David, he just made it so easy just from like the beginning. I don't even know how we got on the topic of chickens, but the whole chicken dar with his wife, and the cats kind of come in and out of the story all the time. Like, he just was such a pleasure to meet, and like a true, real person that, found yoga in his life pretty young, and started DoYogaWithMe.com almost 20 years ago, like 15, 20 years ago. He said 2006, 2007, I think is when it all kind of started. I could get the dates wrong, but I'm not good with math or dates or geography.
As we discussed in the episode.
Exactly.
Before we get into the commentary, Adrienne wanted to do a quick segment of the generation gap.
Yes.
I just made up that name right now.
The generation gap. Or more like, what am I, Gen X and you're millennial?
Yeah.
So schooling the Gen Xer with millennial.
Yeah, that's real quick and snappy. That's a good one.
I fucking hate coming up with shit like that. What is this podcast corner? We'll call it like the generation corner.
Something.
Bridging the generational gap.
Yeah.
There we go.
The gap.
But I just think it's funny because Mia is a millennial and I'm a Gen Xer. So I make references to movies that I'm assuming that she's seen because I grew up in a time where that's what you did. You watched Animal House and Weird Science and 16
I just
Candles.
Smile and nod.
And she has no idea. So all the references that I make to all these hilarious movies that I grew up watching, she doesn't get. Even when we were talking about music and yoga, I was talking about golf and said, all I kept thinking was be the ball, Noonan. And you probably don't even know what that's from.
Nope.
Fucking Caddyshack. So I feel like I want her to go back and watch all these movies, but then I remember she's a millennial. So 9 times out of 10, she'll get insulted by the way that movies were done when I was a kid and the slapstick, grossly over-sexualized women in movies and, the terminology that we used to use that is so not appropriate nowadays.
But all that to say, Adrienne has made a list of things that have either gone over my head or that I've had to explain to Adrienne. Because it does go both ways.
It does go both ways, but it's more towards me, I think, because I don't feel like I have to explain very much to you. What have I had to explain to you?
No, I don't think you explain things to me. I think they go over my head. Your references more so, yeah.
It's more my references.
And there's no way to explain it if I don't watch the movie.
Exactly. And then it's funny because some of the things that you find funny on TikTok and Instagram where I'm the toast guy, you thought the toast guy was so funny. Remember the guy eating the toast? Oh,
yeah.
And I'm
Pedro Pascal eating the toast.
Yeah. And I'm I don't understand why this is funny.
And I was that's the point. Yeah. Yeah, we do have a little bit of a generational divide on the TikToks we like too.
Exactly.
That's why Adrienne's so obsessed with chicken dar. By the way, David, Adrienne has been trying to make a sticker of chicken dar. Not sure if it's going to happen, but
that's up to Mia.
Yeah. Adrienne watches TikToks of just chickens
That's
dancing.
like, my algorithm is either like I get dancing chickens, I get a lot of yoga, I get a lot of like gym fails or like epic fails because I love those too. I like watching people fall and fail. And then I get a lot of the squirrel video because I love that Derek Downey Jr.
Squirrels.
Oh my God, I love him with Hood Rat Raymond and Richard. Like he's got this whole like little family of squirrels that he takes care of out in California. I just love this guy. So I guess like algorithm wise, mine is pretty pure. Like I don't see a lot of like negative things on the gram. I see a lot of really positive things. But the chicken thing is just so funny because I just always get dancing chickens. I'll get like dogs doing stupid shit.
Yeah. But let's hear it. Let's hear the list.
Did I write it down?
Oh, I don't know. We can pretend that you did. You can cut this out. Things that I had to explain to Adrienne. What was one of them this past week, Adrienne?
Oh, well, like learning, what was it? Oh, well, one of them was learning the difference between polyamory, polygamy, and swingers.
Yes.
I had to learn that one.
Yeah.
That one was
I wasn't with
interesting.
Adrienne at first and she was Googling it, but then she called me.
I was like, okay, I'm very confused. What is the difference? Because, you know, in my life, like I'm not exposed to different paths of sexuality because I'm married and I'm not exploring outside of my marriage, nor will I ever.
Swinging, polyamory, or polygamy.
Exactly.
Correct.
But like, I didn't know what it was. And I had to like, I felt so stupid, like Googling it. And then I called Mia and she was cracking up laughing at my
No, it's okay.
Gen X idiocy.
It was just funny. It was silly.
It is funny.
And the other thing I do remember now, we were at Bucky's and she was like, wait, and what are these? And it was like a bimba concha.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh, well, this is like a mass produced concha. And she's like, okay, I know that, but what's a concha? I was like, oh, well, it's like a Mexican baked good. And then you're like, okay, yeah, baked good. How? What is it baked with? And I was like, it's just bread. Yeah, I was like, it's just bread. Because I was like, sweet bread.
Being down in San Antonio, there's so many like Mexican dishes and bakeries and cool stuff to go to. And I go there and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck to order. I don't know what all this stuff is. And so we saw like one that was already prepackaged, and I've been meaning to ask her what it is because Mia's really good with like food and experimenting and trying different foods and like trying different styles. So I was like, what is a concha? And she's just like, it's a pre-made concha. And I was like, I already know that. Give me detail on what the fuck it actually is. There's many times like you've helped me so much understand gender,
Yeah.
you know, and identifying gender and then utilizing the right terminology. I was like so proud of myself when we interviewed David and I was like, oh, I got it. He said step kid, you know, so it was like a they, them situation. And that was like, I was so proud of myself for like recognizing that, you know, and learning about it. But she's opened my eyes to a lot of different things. And it's not because I'm an idiot. It's more about the fact that I'm uninformed. And I think most of us can be uninformed when it comes to being a Gen X or a millennial or what's the new one, Gen Alpha now or something.
No.
What is that?
A Gen Z?
Well, there's Gen Z, but they're in between, right? But there's like a new one now that's above millennial. Because you're
above millennial?
Yeah, like or like newer than millennial.
After millennial is Gen Z.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
Maybe you're thinking of like
another one?
Well, on social media,
it.
there's like a big thing around like being an alpha or being a sigma. What the sigma?
What the fuck does that mean?
It doesn't matter. I don't think any of our, this is so not relevant if you're not a middle school teacher.
I know, right? No. Gen Alpha is somebody who is born between 2010 and 2024.
So that's going to be after Gen Z.
Yes. So it's the demographic of people born between the early 2010s and mid 2020s following Gen Z.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the newest generation.
That's so funny. Oh, so they're just going back and reusing the alphabet for Greek letters. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. But this is something Adrienne really wanted to bring to the podcast. So she did not keep a list this week.
I know.
But
I got to find my list. I got to make it, Leanne.
Keep a list and look forward to this little tidbit.
Will be the bridging the gap between generations corner of our podcast. But it is true because like there's so much that we can learn from each other, and a lot of times older generations don't think that we can learn from younger generations because we think been there, done that. But like, this is a totally different world we live in, and I appreciate it. Sometimes I feel really stupid when I don't understand something, but I also know that I have a safe place with Mia that I can be like, dude, what is wrong with me that I don't understand the difference between these things?
Well, and I think that's a big part of yoga. I think, and when we're yoga students, we're lifetime learners. And honestly, that's already starting to get into our episode a little bit.
Totally.
I'm excited to talk about it. I'm even more excited for you to hear this interview. Before we hear the interview, I do want to share, and I'll share it again at the end, that David did send us some access codes to be able to try out DoYogaWithMe.com. There are 2 offers that you can utilize. One is a 1-month unlimited access to DoYogaWithMe.com. It will be linked in our show notes with the code HYCML. How yoga changed my life.
Woohoo.
Note, please choose the 1-month plan when signing up. Your first month will be free, after which you'll be automatically charged $13.99 per month, but you can easily opt out at any time. The second offer is towards David's Let Go of Anxiety and Fear 21-day program. With this offer, you will get 20% off. The code is HYCML. This code will work for both the full payment and the monthly payment plan, no matter which one you choose. I'll share that again at the end of the episode, and all of that will be linked in our show notes. But we are super excited that you are able to start practicing with David and practicing with DoYogaWithMe.com. Well, let's jump into it. Here is our interview with David.
Sounds good. Namaste, yogis. This is Adrienne.
And Mia.
And we have a new special guest from the BC, which for all you people that don't know anything about geography, that is British Columbia in Canada, the west side of Canada. David.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be with you too. This has already been fun.
Good. That's a good start.
Exactly.
Why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
My name is David Procyshyn. It's the spelling is really funny. It's Procyshyn. It comes from Ukraine, but it's actually very easy to say. Procyshyn. Most people know me as the founder and CEO of DoYogaWithMe.com. We are a mission-based online yoga resource and community. And by mission-based, I mean our goal is to make yoga accessible to everyone. So we literally have almost half of our content free. All you need to do is create an account. And then we have a subscription service that helps pay for that. So those who are able to, they pay. And then they make it possible for those who can't to have access to yoga. I trained as a massage therapist. I am a yoga and meditation teacher. I have a degree in environmental biology from McGill University. And I'm a father. I have a son and a stepkid. They're 13 and 15. And we have 2 cats and 7 chickens.
Wow, chickens.
I thought, I had to include that piece because it's the most important.
So yeah, I'm dying to know about the chickens. I had neighbors that had chickens in Chicago, and that chicken would get loose and end up in my alleyway, and our neighbor's cat would like stalk it. So I remember like going out one morning and I walk back in the door and I'm holding a cucumber, and my kids are like, Mom, why are you holding a cucumber? I'm like, well, because the lady that lives down the street, chicken got out, cat was going to kill the chicken. I stepped in the middle. She handed me a cucumber, took her chicken and left.
Oh, wow.
Good morning.
Everybody who has chickens has a chicken story. They're amazing. Yeah. My chicken story is my wife woke me up at 3 a.m. in a total panic. And it took her a while to tell me what had happened. But one of the chickens got out. Like they get out. They're smart. One of the chickens got out overnight, and she woke up. My wife has this crazy animal sense. Like she has this.
She's a mom.
Chickendar. Can I say chickendar? It's like radar, but chickendar. All right, I just made that word up right now.
That's the perfect name.
Anyways, she could hear while she was sleeping the chicken making noises in the neighbor's yard. Stop. I don't know how she does it. She picks up on animals' panic. So anyways, this chicken's name is Roadrunner, and for good reason, because the Roadrunner was fast, and literally Roadrunner is the only chicken who could survive overnight. So Stacy hears this. She jumps up, gets her clothes on, runs to the neighbor's yard, and Roadrunner is in the midst of being caught by a raccoon, but jumping and swerving like a Roadrunner does. And Stacy jumps in and saves the day. And hence Roadrunner is still alive.
Yay. Go Stacy.
Go Stacy.
Stacy and I have saved chickens in our lifetime. Like, there's not many people that can say that.
Well, my only question to her was, could you not have waited till 7 a.m. to tell me that story?
You were already successful.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. She had to celebrate the win in the moment.
She did. Yeah.
That's funny. Well, let's jump into it. Tell us your yoga origin story, because clearly you're doing a lot with yoga. You're bringing it to folks, but where did it all start for you?
So I grew up in a town called Saskatoon in the prairies in a province called Saskatchewan. So Saskatchewan is pretty much right above Montana, flatland. Hot in the summer, cold in the winter. And Saskatoon is about 200,000 people. It's a fairly small town, conservative. We grew up in the suburbs, and my parents were quite conservative people. So when I was a kid, I remember we didn't travel that much. And my parents' philosophy was to keep us away from drugs and video games. We would play sports. All three of us. I have a younger sister and an older brother. And all of us lived sports. I played baseball, football, hockey, tennis, golf. My favorites were those first three: hockey, football, and baseball. And hockey was number one. And the origins, that's where kind of the origin story starts. I was playing sports, contact sports, rough sports, and I was not big enough to play those sports. And I have this tendency to push myself really hard in everything that I do, and I want to prove myself. And so my goal was to prove myself against these guys who were sometimes, twice as big and could hit much harder. And so, as you can imagine, I did suffer a few concussions in my hockey and football playing career. And ultimately, the reason I went to yoga was because I injured my lower back a number of times. And to the point where I was lying down for 2 weeks and I couldn't stand up when I was 16, like that early in my life. So by the time I was 19, I was like, I need to find a solution to this. So I turned to the internet of the day, which was the Yellow Pages. And I looked up, I can't remember what I looked up. It was something like wellness or health and fitness or something like that. And I found there was only one yoga studio in Saskatoon at the time. It was an Iyengar studio. Never forget it. The woman was everything you imagine as a Iyengar teacher. She was militant. She was tough. She was like, if anyone was out of line, she'd come and she'd point at them.
Yeah.
Look at her hip.
Exactly.
Like,
Find your flank. Yeah. Stop doing that with your back leg. Pivot more.
You're not relaxing enough.
Exactly.
Yeah. And every time she'd go to India and learn more from Iyengar, she'd come back even tougher.
Oh, yeah.
So,
brutal.
Anyways, I only went to her class a few times because there was another woman. Her name was Leah. I'll never forget her. Leah, Lia. And she was soft and gentle and beautiful and sweet. And the biggest thing for me was that she had this grounding effect on me. And little did I know. So I went to yoga because of my lower back, but I was deeply depressed and anxious, like intensely. I found it becomes so normalized for me to feel highly anxious almost all the time, especially in social situations, that I thought everyone felt that way. So I didn't think I needed a solution to that problem. until a little bit later in life, but she just immediately had this beautifully grounding effect on me, not only because she was teaching me something new that felt so good in my body, that created relief for my back, that calmed my nervous system, that taught me a kind of a little bit of a different way to live. But I had a little bit of a crush on her too. That also
That helps.
Yes. Yeah. And then I ended up dating her sister-in-law.
It's like, well, that's why I signed up for karate, was because the instructor was hot.
Yeah. Well, and that's what kept me at yoga. I mean, back then, now it's mostly women. Back then, you're lucky to have one other guy in the class. So I was surrounded by beautiful, fit women wearing tight clothing.
As a 19-year-old.
That was as a 19-year-old. Exactly.
You're lucky that you didn't get eaten for dinner.
Well, and coming out of a football culture too, where the guys talk the way they do, I had the training. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So I think it's crazy. So with Leah, was she at a different yoga studio?
No, she taught she was another teacher at the same
studio. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it was all Iyengar, or was it just that one militant lady?
It was all Iyengar, and Leah just happened to have a different approach to it.
That's awesome.
Which is beautiful to see, because I think you're right. You said we have that typical Iyengar teacher, and we actually have a friend who teaches Iyengar, and she's very relaxed,
very
It's
grounded.
like, and it's nice because like, oh, this is the practice that I wanted, but with a little bit of a different touch or approach to it.
No, that was good. It makes me think about our teacher training program as well, because we have 4 teachers with a wide variety of skill sets and teaching styles, and also areas that their specialties are. So I totally get it. And it comes together in a beautiful way too.
Yeah.
It's more about the personalities and being good people and wanting to learn from each other and all that great human stuff.
That's actually really well said, because that, I think, is why yoga sometimes fails, is because it's money, ego, consumerism, capitalism, whatever you want to call it, driven in, like, it can get to people is what I'm trying to say. Like a perfect example is the studio we used to work at. We were all really good friends. We had great things going. The support levels started to feel shifty. There was a little bit of distrust. And instead of having these hard, open conversations and sitting in that uncomfortableness, it imploded.
Oh, wow.
I'll stop talking. So you started yoga when you were 19 with Iyengar, militant lady, moved to Leah, hot lady, grounded, was amazing, surrounded by women. Then what?
Oh, then what? So that gave me a taste of what was possible. And that was the start. That was the start of my journey. And so I actually look at my life path as being my life path in terms of realizing what I needed to become the person that I wanted to be, that I could thrive every day, that I could feel happy and joyful. I could connect with other people in rich ways. All of these things started on that day. And I started to just explore. So one of my funniest stories I look back on is I joined a meditation circle in Saskatoon, and it was literally this woman's apartment, and it was a circle of chairs, and all of the people there were middle-aged women, and then there was me, who was 19 years old. And the woman guiding the meditations, she was so good. She was really good. She provided tea. It was always chamomile. And she would introduce what they were doing. And then she had this voice that just took me places. She also believed that her cat had healing powers. So there's that too. And I had, like, not only did I learn how to sit and relax and focus my mind, because one of the things about having chronic anxiety is that focusing on anything is super hard. I also think I had ADHD. I just could not, at the worst of it, I couldn't even read a book. I couldn't look at a page and read the words and stay with them. It was just a bad state. So she started teaching me that I could not only focus, but I could feel the sensations in my body. And I had what would be my first out of body experience, where I kind of lifted out and I could see my body from down below, which freaked me out and also made me really fascinated with that experience and that possibility of actually being able to do that. And then from then on, I could fast forward through the rest of it. I basically just pursued the hell out of everything that could create wellness. I've done holotropic breathwork sessions. I've done 3 10-day silent meditation retreats. I've done plant medicine. I have done a whole lot of pranayama. Pranayama has been something that I now do daily because it is powerful. Really, really powerful, especially for people who just feel like the sluggishness and lethargy of depression and anxiety. It is something that can lift you up and wake you up and give you energy, even if it's just for a short burst, giving you those windows of wakefulness and realization that you can feel different. And then I did my teacher training. I did my massage therapy certification. And because I had dedicated so much of my life to understanding what to do with this chronic anxiety, that I was realizing more and more in my daily life was a problem and that maybe was abnormal. I went through experiments all the time. So I was testing, well, how does this affect how I feel? Can I feel less tension in my belly? Can I feel more energy in the morning somehow? Can I feel less panic attacks when I'm in social situations? Like, all of these situations were testing grounds for me. And so then I essentially dedicated myself to not only learning that, but learning ways to teach others how to come out of their own chronic anxiety and depression.
That's amazing. I like how you described, because I suffer with anxiety, with depression, with ADHD, and I take medications for it, and I have no problem telling people that I take medications for it. It works for me right now. And when I'm ready to kind of rip that Band-Aid off, maybe I will be, and I'll try without. But right now in my life, that's not my priority. My priority is just being able to be happy and be calm and, use the tools that I have in my toolbox and be there for people. Like, I totally know when you said, like, I couldn't read, I struggle with that all the time, and I've gotten way better at it. That's for sure. I listen to books. I have like a little photographic memory. So I use those tools that I have, but it's yoga.
No, I was just going to mention something about self-judgment. Like, a huge part of it is being okay with what is hard and just being okay with it, not beating yourself up over all of these moments where you're like, I can't do this as well as that person, or why is everyone able to sit in a pub and be relaxed and I can't do that. And you just got to breathe through it.
Yeah.
And like, it's not always going to be this way, like impermanence, everything flows, everything changes. And someday, if I just stay present with it, then that's going to shift too, even if it's in small ways.
Yeah. Don't confuse a season for a lifetime. Was my intention last week in my classes. So that was kind of interesting.
Beautifully said.
That's beautiful. Nice. One of our really common questions is, when did other people notice a change? Because I heard when you felt that change and then you relentlessly pursued like a number of holistic practices. And I wanted to be actually very specific. You mentioned that your parents are conservative and that all the energy and focus was on sports. How did they take this shift? Because 19, you're still pretty young, I would imagine. Like, parents are still influential at that time point. Maybe, maybe not. But
and you're hanging out with a bunch of women at another lady's house who's got a powerful
Spiritual
cat.
Yeah. How did your family take it? And then like those around you, how did they see the change in you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think in order to know that, you need to hang out with people who are emotionally available and willing to share. And my parents aren't those people. They, I mean, they have a hard time talking about emotions, and they even have a hard time telling their kids that they're proud of them or that they've noticed certain changes for the good. I mean, my mom has mostly told me to stay in school, do something with my degree, get a good job, make lots of money so that I can retire. And I did the opposite. So now it's changed for my parents because I think it's more about them having retired and been able to settle and chill a little bit and not be so much under pressure and stress. So they share a little bit more. They tell us what, you know, things that they're noticing about our lives and how proud they are. But back then, really the first time I met someone who asked me relevant, specific, meaningful questions about how I was feeling, it was when I was in my late 20s. And he's my best friend. His name's Rob. Amazing guy.
Shout out to Rob.
Shout out to Rob. He knows that. He knows he's amazing. I tell him all the time. He's a writer and journalist, fantastic person. He's kind of like the yoga version of journalism, where he makes so little money, but it's his passion, and he wants to change the world with it. That's him. And so I always remember this. We were on a walk, and I was trying to describe to him how I felt, like the pain that I was feeling, and he said, well, he asked me, what would happen if you asked why it was there? It makes me feel emotional right now, but it was
crazy.
Yeah, it's such a crazy. Like, it's, why could I not have asked myself that question? And I over and over now, I ask myself, well, it's all here. Like, if there's anything that's accessible, it's whatever's going on in my brain and my body. Like, why would I not be curious about all that stuff? And it's because it hurt for so long. It hurt. And I just pushed it away. My normal was, get away from me. Like, I can't deal with you. You hurt too much. And you're making my life miserable. And pushing it away made it more miserable, which I didn't know back then, but now I do. So that, I guess, the person that I could say watched my transformation would be him. And we have these conversations all the time about how much our lives have changed since we met. And then my wife, there's no one that I'm closer with now than Stacy. She has this beautiful way of like digging into deep stuff. She's like, she was born a therapist, but she didn't become a therapist. She's like so gifted with that. So she has seen a lot of change. Plus we've gone to therapy together, which is amazing and transformative. But I have learned so much, not about life, but about myself and how I exist in the world and how I create all of these different realities that I didn't realize I had an impact on. Like, we're constantly reacting and playing a role in other people's lives, and I just did not realize all of these things that I was doing by habit. And now I've changed. Yeah.
It makes me think about that that Netflix movie that just came out, that Hack Your Health, where it's like they show like the microbiome, but it's like the idea that everywhere you go in your life, things are coming at you, microbes, whatever it is. So like, you are made up of everything that you've eaten, every place you've been, every lake you swam in kind of thing. And just the idea that like, we don't ask ourselves those questions. We are constantly looking outside, right?
And also everything that anyone has ever said to you too. Like I see that there's an energetic mental component to it, that the stuff that you're being fed, it's like I feel like I've spent half my life unlearning all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, you mentioned that kind of first introspective moment and that realizing that you have these really ingrained habits around perhaps pushing away negative emotions, that realization came in your late 20s. So nearly a decade in to your yoga practice, into diving into committing to yoga, let's say. And I find a lot of folks sometimes will say, like, soon as I started, it changed my life, right? And I'm sure there were some changes. You mentioned the back pain and, finding some power and some peace through meditation. What was it like to then have like almost this renaissance or this reawakening or this second wave of realization? Like, was that difficult to come to terms with? Was it hard? How did you utilize your practice in that time period?
Greatest difficulty for me was always being able to communicate how I felt. That was the greatest obstacle. And there were two reasons why I couldn't do it. One was that I just wasn't used to it. I didn't grow up in a family that openly shared emotions, especially stuff that was uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So I assumed that nobody did it. And if I started doing it, people would start like getting really uncomfortable with me or shutting me out or something. And then the other piece was finding the right people. And so I don't know, I see life as it's just a journey to connect with the people that you feel deeply connected with. I don't know if I put that the right way, but now, like, I'm 50 now, and I feel like I'm in my best decade. And part of the reason is because I'm surrounded by a great group of people that I just feel values aligned with. I feel like I can have deep, long conversations with them about life, like meaningful stuff about life, not just why the Oilers didn't win last night, which they didn't win last night. But
Sorry,
I don't know if you follow hockey, but it was heartbreaking.
I can't follow that stupid fucking puck. It's so tiny. And like, I was so happy when they put the highlighter on it, and then everybody got pissed that the highlighter was on it. So I gave up on hockey. I did go to a game.
The blue streak on the puck. I was very upset by that.
I know. I needed that. I was the dumb blonde in the crowd going, "Where's the damn puck?"
Can you finish the second part of the question? Mia?
Yeah.
Because I think I forgot that second part.
No worries. I had asked, what was that like, kind of having to deal with that, 10 years down the road? Did you utilize your practice? What difficulties came up? Maybe what came with ease? What was that like?
Yeah, nothing came with ease. Everything just seemed painful at that time. And I was going through a major self-discovery phase. So I guess you could say I was looking for, I was also working full time and trying to figure out how to manage this intense anxiety in these work situations. Like most of my jobs, I was waitering.
Oh God.
So it was in a highly sensitive social environment.
Sensory overload.
Sensory overload, yeah. And also working with people who thrive in those environments, whereas I didn't. So I had to like pump myself up before I went there. And I was just exhausted after every shift. So managing my life, and at the same time, I was trying to discover all of these different ways, methods, teachings to allow me to keep feeling this stuff and to learn what to do with it. I didn't know what to do with it. It was all there. And every time I went in to feel it, I would feel the pain and be like, okay, this is good. I can feel the pain, but I would just get stuck and I would get really heavy and I would just kind of curl up in a ball and lie there for hours and not know what to do with it. So I just felt at that point in my life, I felt like there was a window that was telling me, there was a light that was telling me, hey, there is a solution to your problem. Don't know exactly what it is yet, but it's these things that are helping, at least. That's what I know. And then down that path, I would like meet someone who would say, hey, you got to try this, or meet another person. Hey, you got to try this. And then that was basically how I started to learn to let go of the stuff that was holding me back.
I see people really limitless, right? Like I look at somebody and I've gotten my ass handed to me many of times because my attitude is, I'll take you with open arms. I don't care who you are. I'll connect with you on one level, you know? And I've gotten fucked over many times. But it's those couple of times, like you said, those people that kind of come into your life at those moments and they bring you some sort of little tidbit or tool or piece of knowledge or question, you know, and you're able to then sit back and say, okay, I'm keeping you. You're not going anywhere. And surrounding yourselves with those people.
Yeah. Yeah, I've decided that you are my friend for life, so you can't move away. That's what you got to do. Actually, my best friend did move away, so screw him. He's in Calgary. Hopefully, it's Rob, the guy I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Hopefully, he's listening to this podcast.
He better be. Shout out to Rob.
Shout out to Rob. Move back.
I hope my friend Sarah's listening because she would say the same thing. Move back, motherfucker.
Yeah, I love the way you frame that because, yeah, of course you're never too old to learn something that can radically change your life or the way you think about your life or how you relate to yourself in your life. And I just think that there are an endless number of questions that you can ask yourself that trigger or prompt a response that comes from within. It's that easy. Like, don't look outside of yourself. Sometimes someone out there will be able to step in and say, hey, have you thought about this or whatever? Like, but it's all about you learning how to relate to yourself, not how someone else relates to themselves. So I'll just think of questions like basic one is, who are you? Like if you sit with that question for 10 minutes and you let every question kind of sink deeper down into who you are, it's crazy profound. Like it's that simple. You can think of 100 different questions like that. Like you can scan your body and you can feel a certain part of your body and ask yourself, why is that there? Why are you there? Like give it personality. Why are you there? Or who do I think I am? And you can think about all those things. Okay, who am I? And then your ego starts to say, this is who I am. This is who I am. And then you start to realize, holy, can I actually dissolve all that shit?
Exactly.
Because really, like, why?
Right.
That's it. Why? And then you realize, wow, I'm carrying all of that stuff with me. Like all of these, so many different questions can start to dissolve and fragment all those pieces of who you think you are because of things that people said to you, because of thoughts that you've had about yourself, because of failure. All of these experiences have created who you are. And I think our job right now is to just dissolve that ego and have a new starting point. Beginner's mind.
Exactly.
You know, fresh beginner's mind, like you're a baby experiencing life in the moment for the first time. That's where I want to be because it feels good.
It does. I'm so curious to know. So now that we've kind of gotten into like your journey through learning meditation, learning pranayama, learning yoga, what brought you to DoYogaWithMe.com? Because Mia and I for years have talked about, well, we should do like a studio that's kind of like, it's a house, but then there's a duplex, and then like somebody can live upstairs and they can work downstairs, and like then we can offer free yoga, and then we could do this, and maybe we get these people to buy this and this people to, you know, how many times have we built a yoga studio in our brain?
Plenty of times. So how did your offering come to be? That's what we want to know.
Yes.
Because we
I
love
love
that.
how Mia just took that over.
She has to.
No, we would have told you our 5 different ideas.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't going to go down that path.
We could have, though.
I could have,
we
though.
could have.
Yes, for sure.
Well, that's actually interesting because that's what I did for a really long time. What about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? And my brother, who's the business-minded guy who worked in government for 20 years before he became my business partner. He was like the grounding force. Ironically, I'm the yogi. He was my grounding force, the computer nerd.
Older brother or
And
younger brother?
2 years older than me. And he would say to me, those are all great ideas, but they're just ideas.
Shut up. Right?
And also, the more money you're going to spend on this idea, the more you got to test it out before you do it. So back to the origin story. So it is a little bit of a fib to say that I'm the founder, because what happened was I was teaching yoga at a personal training studio in Vancouver. And one of the guys that I connected with, we just had a nice relationship. He came up to me one day. This was back in 2006, 2007, around there. And he said, hey, my buddy and I, my computer science friend and I are creating this website, and it's around personal training. And basically we're filming videos to help people personal train at home. And we're wondering if you want to do one on yoga. So that was the moment, the origin. And what ended up happening was I said yes. And his buddy, who had a full-time job, plus he was building this personal training site, plus he was building a one for yoga. He just couldn't do it anymore. He was exhausted and worn out. I think he was even a single parent, which was crazy. And basically we had this conversation. There's a great story in this too. My girlfriend at the time, Joni, shout out to Joni.
Shout out Joni.
Shout out to Joni. I didn't know what to do because I was getting really frustrated, and instead of being a yogi, my anger was kicking in. I was like, I'm getting so mad because he's never available, and it's taken a year for him to put up this video, and what's going to ever happen with this? I'm putting all this energy and time into it. And so Joni is a kindergarten teacher. So she crafts this email, brilliantly, beautifully crafted email that was full of compassion and acceptance. And then he gave me the website.
No
Nice.
way.
He handed it over to me, and Joni was
Big shout out,
I
Joni.
ran into Joni. I ran into her last year. And I said, do you realize that the only reason I have DoYogaWithMe is because of you? And she's like, yeah.
Big shout out to Joni. Like, seriously.
Big shout out to Joni. So I am the founder. I call myself the founder basically because it really didn't exist before it was passed on to me. And then basically I went to my brother who was working for the government. I said, hey, do you want to try this out with me? And he immediately said yes. And in his spare time, he built the second version of the website. And then that is the origin story, and it's grown from there.
So how did you decide, or how long has it taken you to build this up? Like, is this your full-time gig? Like, are you supporting your family on this? Like, curious minds want to know.
Do you have other teachers on the site as well? How does that work?
Oh, have you not been on the website?
We looked briefly at it, but I did not get a chance to.
Well, and also for our listeners, explain that for them.
I want you to explain it like listeners, because
okay.
I don't want to lead you down paths, because then I'll just talk about all the things I liked about it, and then I don't want to have to make shit up that I didn't like.
I was partially just teasing you.
That's good.
But yes, so it started out with me.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can imagine this picture, this scenario, I go to the park, I have one camera because I could only afford one camera. And back then it was a crappy,
huge
not
one.
HD, not HD. No, it was small, but it was a cheap consumer camera that wasn't HD, so it wasn't good quality, and I would put it on a tripod, and then I would just hope that I had the framing right, and I would do the poses. And then because I knew that I needed to like stand up or change my position, I would go to the camera and I would reframe, and then I'd keep going. And it would take me literally, a long time to film like a 30-minute class. So that was me. And then I would record the audio after that. And then I would learn these editing programs and I would edit. So I did everything. I did all of the content. My brother was doing the back end, after he came home from work. And so that was the starting point. And then by some dumb luck, my website had existed for a little while. We started to get traffic. Everything was free. We started with everything free without any sort of business philosophy for that. We just decided to do that. And then I started to get yoga teachers pay attention. And then they kind of just asked me, hey, what is your website and how do I get involved? So the first one, I don't know if you are aware of Fiji McAlpine. She's an amazing teacher, fantastic person, just a good-hearted, lovely gift to humanity. She's an amazing person. So she was one of the first people that came on, and I had slightly improved my video filming skills at that time, but it still took like 4 hours to film a 1-hour class. Now it takes like almost the same amount of time to film a class, because now I have videographers. But anyways, the story is that over time, we started accepting donations. So we started to make some money then. I was just working part-time and my brother was working very part-time. And then at one point we said, okay, we got to actually do something about this because we're not making enough money to survive on. We added a subscription and that changed everything. So right away we added a subscription and all these people subscribed. And overnight, we had a business. Overnight, we were able to pay ourselves a decent wage. And then soon after, my brother quit his job and we started to learn how to run a business. I had no business experience. He had limited experience with the government, being like a project manager. And over time, I'm sure you both understand this. I mean, it's all about people finding you. And then it's all about proving to that person that's that your product that the value is enough for them to pay for it. Yeah. Right. So basically we stuck with the mission of making yoga accessible to everyone by adding a subscription. We made it possible to pay ourselves. And now we have a team of 10 people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yep. Yeah, it's amazing. 2 videographers, social media, newsletter, content production. We have, the developers, of course. Yeah, it's good.
So with Do Yoga with Me, I was say for me, that would be a good one too. Do yoga for me. Just do it.
That was a April Fool's joke that we ran.
Oh.
Do yoga for me. We did a video where I promised that I could do yoga for them at a cost, like they had to send me $200.
Oh my gosh.
I would come to their house. I'd knock on their door and come to their house and I would do yoga for them. And we had my videographer. He was sitting on the couch eating a pizza. He was like, wow, that pose you're doing is amazing. And I feel so good. It was amazing. Some people fell for it.
That's hysterical. That's so funny. Yeah. So how do you, because now that you've been doing this for a while, like I mean, especially after COVID, right? Or during COVID, because of COVID, we had to learn how to do Zoom, classes. We had to learn how to do online yoga teacher trainings. We had, I'm still doing Zoom classes online, and people don't really understand how hard it is to get that frame right because you're standing up, you're horizontal, you're sitting on the ground, you're laying on the ground, like getting all of those angles. And then to finally be able to produce something of quality that people can actually follow along. It takes a long time. So I feel your pain when you said it'd take me like a whole day to film a 30-minute class, right? I got to the point where I'm like, I don't want to do it. I just want to teach it, like, or say it, because doing it was getting so frustrating, and I was getting so mad every time I would mess up, or I'd mess up the frame or whatever. So it's like really hard for people. So the fact that you've been doing this for almost 20 years, 2006, 2007 is when this started. So, I mean, you're coming up on a big anniversary for that. Like, what are the keys to keeping you grounded and not being an egomaniac? Because everybody wants to do yoga with you.
Well, who's to say that I'm not an egomaniac? I don't know if you
Yet
know
to
me
be
that well.
disproven.
Yeah.
So yeah, we started running retreats. I'll connect why this matters soon, but we started running retreats in 2013, I think, as we ran our first one. And we would go there through this really strange experience where these people who'd only seen us through their TV would see us for the first time. And immediately we would be treated like celebrities. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm meeting the David Procyshyn. And be standing there with my wife and kids, and my, after just having an argument with my wife or something like that about some ridiculous, meaningless thing. And I'm like, yeah, it's me. And so you have two choices in that moment. Do you live up to their expectations, or do you become human? And so I chose, and Fiji, we have this conversation all the time. It's like, yeah, we are absolutely real from the moment we meet person to when we, when they leave our retreat. And it's been the best thing we've ever done because it's disarming. It's, you completely dissolve that artificial connection, which is based on them knowing you in a different way. And a lot of the people that we have on retreats end up being longtime friends. Like, we're still in connection with them. So I don't want to live the life where, where I'm the most important person in my world in that day. Like, I want to serve. I want to help. And I think that I've been born into privilege. I've been able to learn from my life and all of the stuff that has happened with me. And I believe that I have the ability to help others. And now we have this format. Like, I wake up feeling blessed every day that we have a couple 100,000 people coming to our website every month. It blows my mind when you actually think about it. And you look at the map. When you look at a global map and there's someone in Serbia who watched a video yesterday, and then you imagine someone, like, you just kind of think about what that scenario is like that person, who they are, why they're watching that video, what their surroundings are like, what their life has been like up to that point. It's just way too big to fathom.
And
so I'm super grateful that we're in this position.
No, and it's like, I like what you said. Like, I feel like we are in the service. Like, we serve other people. Like, people say, what's your job? And I'll say, my job is to hold a space, a brave space, where people can alleviate their own suffering. And it's not, like you said, it's not about me, because it's way bigger than me. And the fact that I get to be a part of it, a teeny tiny part of it, that's what matters to me. And like, Mia and I are coming up on almost a year and a half of doing the podcast. And we're in 75 countries now. And like, when we first started, we were like, how many countries are there?
We're really good with geography.
We suck at geography. But there's 195 countries.
We have since looked it up.
Yes, we have. That day. We Googled that shit. And we were like, and that was like when we're in the US. Oh my God, we're in Australia. And I'm like, well, my dad lives in Australia, so I fucking better have somebody listening in Australia, And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, now we're in this many. We're in over, 1,000 different cities, And we've been on, the podcast world is different because they don't have genres specific enough for yoga podcasts, right? So to figure out like where you rank, you fall into health and fitness, and then you fall into the fitness category.
And that's where Huberman is, in case anyone's wondering.
Yeah, so fuck Huberman. He's amazing. We all know. But like, somebody write to Apple and Spotify and just ask for a yoga genre so that we can start tracking our amazing yoga podcasts. I don't care if there's a freaking badminton podcast. Like, do it.
But also, all that to say, we've also had, not too frequently, but most recently, we did have a moment where they're like, well, before we met you, we listened to the podcast and did all this research. And we were like, oh, crap, that's crazy. Like, you know, a very similar moment of how do we respond to the expectation.
Even when we first started, remember we were at the studio together and a girl came in and she's like, oh my God, you're Adrienne. You're on the podcast. I listen to you. I'm Mia's friend. I'm coming to take your class, or she was coming to take your class or something. But it was like, we were recognized. And I was like, well, I was like, I don't want that. Like, that's great. Good. But I'm just a mom that loves yoga. Like, let's talk about yoga. You know, like, I don't want to be I could be a piece of it.
Yeah. But I think that decision to be human is really important. Because I've seen a lot of teachers not take that route, right? To kind of, and it's interesting. I think meet expectation is a really generous way to put it, because it does feel like that, like, well, like there's that point of tension, like this is what they expect from me. And this is perhaps the space that I've held. Do I continue to kind of hold it in that manner? And it's a very delicate thing. And I understand how some teachers go down that path, but it's a path that can be dangerous quickly, I think. And dangerous is maybe is hyperbolic, but it can
be shitty.
Yeah, or it's a power dynamic, right? It's a power dynamic that then a little bit down the road, it's like, whoa, who did you become? Or I've just seen it. So
yeah,
I like that you mentioned that choice to be human.
We could go down the long list of teachers, gurus who have been corrupted by fame. I mean, it's endless, really.
Yeah.
Actually, on that note, it makes me think about the first time I saw a stand-up comedian, and it was small enough. The venue was small enough, and he was small enough that he ended up just walking out into the crowd after his set.
Oh wow!
And I remember my friends and I went up to him. And we expected him to immediately be as funny as he was on stage. And he was just kind of glum.
You're like, dude, what? Make me laugh. Make me laugh.
Yeah.
Come on, monkey, dance.
Yeah, so my concern is that I'm not living up to the expectations of this person that has just met me for the first time. That's what I get a little bit worried about. But I think that the other path is better for the long term.
Well, that's the true connection, right? And that's what we're driving here. We're driving a true connection. Yeah. It's not about the person on the television. It's about the connection that you're having in your body with the practice that he's teaching you. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And when I'm a teacher, I'm also learning just as much as when I'm taking a class with someone else. It's like I feel like the teacher-student whole situation is very blurry because often students are teaching me a hell of a lot too.
Oh, for sure.
In lots of different ways.
I mean, it's almost like a role reversal if you think about it from what you were saying earlier. Like, instead of looking outside to figure out what you are not or what you are or who you are, you go inside to figure that out. Well, you can't jump into anybody else's body and figure it out, but they can show you on their mat. They can show you through their movement. They can show you through, their gait, through their mobility, through their space around their heart. There's so many different things that just physically they teach us, and how to react, respond, and support, or just simply be there for them.
Yeah, that's right. Tune in.
Exactly.
Tune into intuition, and that deeper sense of feeling and connection in that way is so valuable.
And it's not only a vulnerable place for students to be, but it's a very vulnerable place for teachers to be. So I think sometimes teachers will take the route of the ego, or the route of like they all come to my class because I'm the cool kid, or that I do the cool sequencing, or all the cool, hip people are coming to my class. It's like, I don't give a fuck what you look like, where you've been, who you have slept with, not slept with, done as a job. Come take my class. And
Just
then,
the first time you've said that one. I don't care who you slept with.
I know. I don't know why I said that.
That was a new one. That's
That was
all.
a new one.
My-
Yeah.
I was shocked by that one.
I'm not a
That
sexy
must have
talker.
come up recently. I don't know.
My favorite part of this conversation is watching Mia's response.
I know.
So good. I wish people could see it.
I know.
I'm glad
You
they
gotta
came.
post some of this.
You can tell. We totally will.
Yeah.
We'll send it to you.
I just
Yeah.
can't believe you said I don't care who you slept with. You haven't. Anyways, but yeah.
But it's important.
Well,
and
I was just going to say that is a status symbol, isn't it? I don't know.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thanks for
Validating.
Thanks for
For
validating
validating.
my off-color comment.
Yeah, this has been the funnest part of my year. I got to say, even my son has scored some pretty amazing goals in hockey, but this is up there.
Nice. Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Not going to get into my ego or anything. No, just kidding.
Sit up a little taller.
Exactly.
Something we do like to ask folks is, what can others learn from your story?
Yeah, so the obvious one would be my connection to anxiety and depression. That has been, I guess you could call it my specialty, because of my combined personal experience with it, and also everything that I've been trying out to overcome my own anxiety, to let it go, and then all the research I've been doing. And by the way, there is just a crazy wealth of research into alternative approaches to anxiety, depression, panic attacks, like you name it, all of these different issues that people are having problems with more and more. Insomnia,
PTSD is a big
high
one.
levels of stress. Yes, PTSD. And so I am essentially dedicating my life to helping people. So I started creating this website, and then now we have a team, and now the website's operating on its own, and I can kind of step back and ask myself, okay, what do I really want to do with my life? What gives me the most meaning? And my experience has always been that I want to help others gain the perspective and the tools and the skill set to be able to live day to day with a high level of anxiety. And I don't know if you've seen the numbers, but anxiety is just going spiking up like crazy because of, our instant access to information, social media, just the speed of life right now, especially among young kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I am in the midst. I have one program that's out right now. It's a 21-day program that helps people with similar to the questions we were asking. So it's taking people through a 21-day experience where they're taught how to ask themselves questions, to introduce mindfulness into their lives in a way that allows them to make sense of the pain and anxiety that they're feeling, and how to truly, in a meaningful way, let it go. It's called Let Go of Anxiety and Fear, 21-day program.
It's a good name.
And then, yeah, I think so too. And so the second one I'm designing is another very different approach. Not necessarily that it's going to bring about different results. It's just that you can approach anxiety and depression in different ways. This one focuses on the power of pranayama. So this one, I'm basically in the designing phase. That one is going to launch in February. So it'll also be 21 days. It'll be teaching people, like, basically from the start, how to breathe, how to combine that with meditation, and then how to do a daily practice that is transformative for you living with anxiety daily. And then also involving like the philosophy and the important questions. So those are a couple things that they can pursue. On Do Yoga With Me, we also have a lot of resources for anxiety.
Oh, great.
We have a number of different teachers. I think we have total 30, 32 teachers or something on the website right now. You asked that question earlier. I guess I didn't answer it.
That's okay.
Good.
We have around 32, around that teachers. And some of them also teach classes on stress and anxiety. And we have a lot of restorative and yin and relaxation classes, and we have guided meditations. We have 100 audio guided meditations that are fantastic that I recorded in my closet, which is right there.
I did a bunch of audio meditations for an app for a while for a friend of mine's studio, and did some classes on the website. So I know it's hard now. All of your 32 teachers, do they live in and around the BC area, or are they all over?
Yeah, they live in Victoria or Vancouver.
Nice.
Yeah, we film everything here. So we have a video production team. We choose the teachers. They need to be a certain kind of person. They need to be teaching for a certain amount of time. They need to teach in a way that works on video, because it's really important to have clear cues and descriptions. And we have our own studio, and actually we're known mainly for filming outside. We just blitz our video production during the summer.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's too fucking cold up there for wintertime. You'd be like, inhale mountain pose.
Yeah, but we have, it's the Pacific West Coast, right, which is known for gorgeous scenery. So we have a lot of beach settings that we go to frequently, where you see the ocean in the background and the mountains behind that, and birds and people paddleboarding past. And we have a lot of forest settings, and we have even this one meadow that is covered in flowers in the spring. It's just we have a lot of beautiful options for the summer.
That sounds beautiful. So these 21-day programs, are they part of the Do Yoga With Me program, or is it a retreat? Is it
Or behind the subscription wall?
Yeah.
Oh, it is not behind the subscription wall. It is a separate premium program. It's actually built on Thinkific, which is a program design website. So we started with Thinkific by building our teacher training program there.
Yeah, we did too, in a different world that I lived in. Yeah, I was very familiar with that. Yeah.
Okay, so that's where we basically put everything on Thinkific that has a more in-depth experience to it, and that requires an enormous amount of resources. Then we need to charge separately for those programs.
I mean, that was a big one, but I didn't know. At first you said the first thing, or you said the obvious thing was, and I didn't know if there was a less obvious thing you wanted to share.
Right. Okay, yeah, I do have one thing. So there was a question that you posted when you shared example questions with me before we recorded this. And one of them was something about being in the flow.
Ooh, yeah, that's my favorite question.
All right. Yeah. So that is a really interesting question, because for much of my life, because I grew up being raised in a particular environment, which was, a particular way. And one of my outlets was sports. It became an outlet. Our parents forced it on us, but then it became something I truly loved. And it still is that way for me today. And one of my greatest realizations was I just mentally separated a lot of experiences in my life just naturally, because they came from different sources. And I started to realize how often I felt a sense of being high on life when I'm playing sports. It's kind of like when you're sitting still and you can let your mind become so quiet that you're just present. And it's in hockey and football that I feel that frequently. I'll feel I'm playing, and then suddenly my mind is just there and I'm in the flow, and I like that feeling. And so what I'm trying to describe is that sense of being fully present, awake, alive, mindful can happen no matter what you're doing. And try not to separate your experiences according to what helps you more, because that opportunity is always there. Even when you're like having a fight with your spouse or doing something you hate, like maybe that feeling will spontaneously create a moment of awareness.
That's a really good point. Like I was trying to make it make sense at one point. We were saying like when you swing a golf club, right? And everything just kind of lines up. You're not thinking about, are my shoulders down? Is my grip loose? Are my feet wide enough? You know, it's like you just take that breath and hit it. And it's like that magic kind of happens in that moment. And you're like, whoa, I'm here, right? Like I'm here. And I was able to do that. And I'm kind of in this bliss body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I know you've shared it a few different ways, but where can our listeners find you? We're going to link it in the show notes, but go ahead and shout yourself out. Where can they find you?
Oh, yeah. So I actually haven't shared my personal website. It is my full name.com, davidprocyshyn.com. The website that I founded in 2008 is called DoYogaWithMe.com. And then the courses one, where we have the 21-day programs and our yoga teacher training, is called courses.doyogawithme.com.
I'm glad that we had a chance to meet. I'm so glad that we now have a friend in BC. Can't wait to meet the family and Roadrunner. And what was the cat's name?
Who?
His cat on the lap.
Who? No.
Oh,
Yes.
Who? That's right.
Who's on first?
Elvis. Oh my God, I used to love that. Yeah, Abbott and Costello.
You've seen the?
Oh yeah, yeah.
that's good.
I'm 49,
I showed
dude.
it to-
We grew up together. I'm a 75 baby.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Talk about a skit that holds up.
Yes.
I showed it to my kids and they were like burst. They couldn't.
It's the best.
They were hurting so much they were laughing. So
Mia
much.
has
Yeah,
no
it
idea
was-
what we're talking
Never
about.
seen it, but I trust you.
She's a millennial.
Oh.
I'm going to show her
Yeah.
later.
Yeah,
I'm going to make her watch
YouTube,
it.
Who's on first? Yeah, it's really, really funny. Anyways, who and two? This
Yes.
spelling yet for two has not been
To be
decided.
determined.
To be determined, TBD.
determined.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I do think you should do like a little experiment at home with like 2 treats on the names of 2 and 2, and then have the cat get up and film it and see if it picks its name.
Oh, have like a bowl with each variation, and then the same treat in each bowl. and
Yes,
then
you
see
got to
which
make
one
it like
she
a
goes
make
to?
it like a real test, like a real clinical study
Right.
research test.
It's very scientific.
Okay, I'm gonna propose that to my wife, and I'll get back to you.
Tell your kids, they'll probably do it for you. Well, thanks again
out
for
there making money.
everything. He is. Thanks for everything. We really appreciate it. This was so fun, and keep in touch. We'll make sure you have our cell phone numbers. We can text Canada, right? That's free.
I don't know.
I think so.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
It depends on your plan. I can text the US.
Cool.
Okay, sweet. Text us.
All right.
Thank you,
All right,
David.
David. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Like I said, we had a lot of fun on that interview.
Yeah, we did. He was really funny. I hope that there's not like too much of a delay between the Zoom and the recording. I mean, obviously we couldn't go to British Columbia and be with David personally. So we really pride ourselves on strong audio and being really proficient in the sound quality of our episodes. So hopefully there's not too much of like a lag in between things, but my God, he was really funny and he was a lot of fun to talk to, learning his stories and like learning how, he was in a town, he grew up in a town of 200,000 people in Saskatchewan. Did I say that right?
No
Saskatchewan.
idea.
Hopefully I did. And how, his family, very similar to a lot of families in the Gen X generation, we were kept busy, right? It was sports, it was activities, it was, parents just saying like, go do something, get out of the house, go do something and not get into trouble. And so I thought it was, interesting that, you know, he pushed himself super, super hard and he felt like he had to always prove himself because he was a smaller dude. And then he ended up with a back injury at 16 years old, you know, and then look through the yellow pages to find a place to practice yoga. And I just find it so cool because even like his battle with depression and anxiety, the one thing that he said that kind of connected with me a lot was that he thought everyone felt the same way. But the connection of anxiety and depression that he's had, that he's been able to work through because of his yoga practice. And, you know, he had a taste of what was possible.
Yeah. I really appreciate this interview because David is someone who has had a long-standing practice. You know, I love interviewing folks who are new to yoga and have that kind of fresh excitement of, have you tried yoga? Come try yoga, go do yoga. You know, like we've all been there, but to see someone who has a consistent practice over years and decades is also inspiring.
Well,
right?
especially if you think about all the changes that have happened over the years with yoga, a lot of people that are in my generation, some of them have stepped away.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right, especially when we think about kind of social change that has come about, awareness around abuse within the yoga community, a number of factors, right?
Yeah.
But I think that brings us to our kind of theme or message or what stood out.
Yeah.
And I would like to share a yoga sutra that I think really resonated with me. And this is Sutra 114. If you're not familiar with the Yoga Sutras, we've shared them in a few episodes, but these are philosophical teachings around the practice of yoga. You know, we study them a lot in 200 hours. There's a lot of different translations. This translation comes from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, translated and introduced by Alistair Shearer. And so, Sutra 114. The practice of yoga will be firmly rooted when it is maintained consistently and with dedication over a long period of time. This is a sutra that I find to be emphasized a lot when doing trainings, when kind of discussing the importance of a consistent practice. And that is what really stood out for me with David, especially when we think about kind of 10 years into his practice. He's obviously committed. He's obviously, you know, diving in head first with a number of holistic spiritual practices. And then the change and the work keeps happening, right? That, I mean, David, just so you know, that story that you shared of the walk with your best friend and him asking you, like, where do you think this comes from? Or why do you think it's coming up? And having to reflect and do that work, even 10 years into this journey, it really resonated with me. You know, we share it all the time. Yoga will continue to change your life. And I think that's what comes with a consistent practice.
Absolutely. David's interview, he discussed a ton about how he would dive deep into all the different ways and modalities and movement of breath and anything he could find spiritually to try to alleviate the suffering of anxiety and depression that he was going through. And to me, like, that wealth of knowledge and personal practice is inspiring, right? Like, he can teach a lot of people how to deal with the anxiety or depression that they're dealing with. But at the end of the day, it's all up to us. It's a personal practice. And practice does not mean perfect, ever, 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 ever. And I feel like when people understand that about yoga, is that yoga is not just a practice of physical asana. It is a way of living your life to be who you're supposed to be kind to other people. It's like being a human, like being a real human. Like when David said, I chose real. You know, I didn't want to be someone who's put up on a pedestal. And I totally can relate to that. And so can you. Like, for me, my practice is super personal. And it's where I have to have a great deal of love and respect for myself and for the work that I do on my mat, in my breath work, journaling, meditation, all of the different limbs of yoga that appeal to me that I practice regularly. And it's not to be interrupted. So you know how it goes. you come around the holiday season and your classes kind of dip down a little bit numbers wise because people are quote unquote busy. They're spending time doing other things that they think are a priority for that season. But, don't confuse a season for a lifetime. You got to have that yoga practice as your foundation. It's just like brushing your teeth every day, have some sort of a practice every day. And we're not saying an hour-long sweaty yoga class, right? It can be anything from a couple of minutes of meditation, a couple of minutes of silence, a couple of minutes of breath work, or a couple of minutes of movement. But it's honoring the fact that you are connecting within because it's the only thing that you can control.
Yeah. I think right now I'm in a very pivotal moment as it relates to a personal practice. I shared this a couple episodes ago, or maybe even last episode, as it relates to my teaching schedule changing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a opportunity or an indicator for me to also reflect on my personal practice. I think I have come to rely on my teaching practice very heavily as it relates to my connection with yoga, and especially a physical practice with yoga, because that's how I schedule my asana practice.
Right.
I take a class and then I teach, or I teach and then I take a class. Like I make the two very, very heavily linked. So I think I've realized that there's this fear around, well, if I'm not teaching, then I'm not practicing.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It made sense to me the other, reflecting on it a little bit more. I think what's tough is I do have an at-home practice. It's been a lot of meditation and I love that. And so I don't want that to go away, but I think also working with Nicole, who is one of my teachers, along with Adrienne and my 300, it's time for my personal practice to also be physical at home, to start being introspective around the asana, around what's energetically and physically happening in my body, and then translating that to teaching.
Yeah.
I think there's, it's weird when you can feel it coming. You're like, I know it's coming. Like a change is about to happen. There's a shift about to happen. And I'm working on it, y'all.
I know. Well, it's not easy. It's really not easy because one of the scariest places to go when you're in pain, whether it's emotional pain or, spiritual pain, is going to your yoga mat because it's where you need to be.
And actually, it's interesting. I forgot to tell you this, and I think you'll just really like it, so I'm going to share it. Mm-hmm. When my mom was in town, I took her to visit Camp Hot Wells, and I saw a fox 3 times.
Stop it.
I know you love that stuff.
I love that stuff.
Yeah. And so...
The same fox or a different fox?
It was the same fox, but I was the only one that saw it. I kept being like, there it is. No, look over here. Like, no one else saw the fox. And it was just me. And I'm sad that other people didn't get to see it. But then my uncle said, well, maybe it was just for you to see. You should look up the meaning behind foxes. And actually, it is related to like change and being adaptable to change.
Oh my gosh, you're right. So I just Googled it too. Mm-hmm. So it says spotting a fox might also mean you need to trust your intuition more and look for creative solutions to your problems. And in many cultures, foxes are considered good luck and a sign of prosperity, intelligence, and resilience.
Yeah.
Ooh. I saw a fox the other day too.
Yeah?
Yeah. I've run across the street, scared the shit out of me. I was like, if I was like 3 seconds ahead, dude, you would have been toast. Like I would have lost my shit if I hit an animal. Like I've hit an elk, or not an elk. What is it called? A mule deer out in Chicago. I was driving down the road. I just clipped him.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't going that fast. And he like came out of nowhere, jumped in front of my car. I slammed on my brakes. I'm like, oh my God, I killed something. Like, I can't believe it's huge. It was huge. It was a big buck. He had huge antlers. And I looked over to my side and he's standing there and he's just looking at me like, bitch, you hit my ass. And then he just looked at me and walked away. Totally fine. I was like, thank God. Because I was late to a meeting. I was like, I don't know how I would explain, hey, I hit a big mule deer this morning and had to take care of a body. Ugh. No, but animals are so cool in the fact that they can like, I don't know, you just see them, especially when you're in a place like a city in San Antonio and then you see like a fucking armadillo walking down Broadway, you know,
Yeah.
So strange. But getting back to David and getting back to the Sutra 1.14, what I find really cool is that oftentimes we think of practice to get better at something, right? And so last week, my theme in class was we practice yoga not to get better at yoga. We practice yoga to get better at living. In a personal practice, it's not about getting the pose. It's about moving energy. It's about alleviating things that are bothering you or things that you want to work through. Maybe if it's crying, maybe it's laughing.
I think it's a lot of introspection.
Yeah.
David mentioned asking yourself questions to prompt yourself into introspection. And that's hard.
It is.
And I think that's also why personal practices are difficult. It's why we avoid them. I mean, right now, I think I'm going through a big transition as it relates to my teaching offerings.
Mm-hmm.
That's difficult. I have, at times, I feel very resolute on the solution or what I'm going to do. And there are times where I avoid it and I give myself a deadline down the road where I'm going to think about it. Where I'll say, if this happens, I'll consider changing, or on this date, I'll decide how much I want to do, or over down the road is when I'm going to deal with this. But that consistent practice over time makes it more comfortable.
Yeah.
Makes it more possible. I don't know if it'll ever be easy. And I guarantee the yogis out there who have been doing this for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, if it gets easier, please tell me.
But it doesn't get easier. You know what I find?
But you get practiced in it.
You get practiced and it's a habit. It's like you wake up in the morning and it's like, okay, I got to brush my teeth, right? It's like the same thing with when you have been practicing for decades, right? Or even just consistently for years, you find a little comfort in the fact that that is part of your routine, right? It's already built in, but getting that routine is hard, right? Because it has to be self-motivated. Right? Being in a yoga studio and teaching classes, and most yoga studios give their teachers a free membership. So we're able to take classes there. And so that's like a gimme, right? It's like, you're going to go teach class, you're going to take one before or after, right? Or on your day off from teaching, you're going to go take so-and-so's class. So you have like a commitment, you have someplace to be. It's not like I'm home, I'm doing the dishes. Oh, I got to go hit my yoga mat. But I think like having a practice at home is such a hard thing to do because there's everything else that you could be doing at home but practicing yoga. And then sometimes your brain will fuck with you and it's like, well, you should be vacuuming, you should be cleaning your closet, you should be doing laundry, but you're on your yoga mat. And what you have to understand is that in order to do those other things, you need this.
Yeah.
You need this first. Like, you're not going to walk out the door with stinky ass morning breath. You're going to make sure that you leave your house or your next step in your day with the intention of showing up as the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
As best as you can.
And I think when it relates to introspection, friendships and relationships that provide that opportunity are important also.
Big time.
That friend holding up the mirror when you're unable to do it for yourself is huge and pivotal.
Yep.
I love what David mentioned about actual relationships where you can have actual conversations about deep things, about who you want to be, what you want to contribute to this world, what you want to leave behind as your legacy. Like, who are you?
Yeah.
That is actually, I don't know, I find those conversations so nourishing, so valuable, so rewarding.
Me too.
It's funny. Jair and I have lived together our entire relationship. And the first 2 years we had other roommates. And one of them came in and then complained to our other roommate. She said, Mia and Jair want to like talk about the war and shit. Like, oh, they can't ever just like relax. Like, and for me, like those conversations in some way, shape, or form are relaxing. Like, I like getting deep and getting deep fast and talking about the war and shit.
Well, no, we do that too. Like,
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that's really kind of bonding about when you practice yoga. You do develop relationships that go deep quickly, you know, especially from a teacher to a student. You learn from them, they learn from you. And it's like this openness is there, right? And I don't know, having deep conversations is so much more palatable or more genuine and more meaningful to me than having conversations about the fucking weather, like the uncomfortable bullshit stuff, you know, or the gossip of the day. It's like, no, I want to understand more in life, you know. I guess that's why I was a philosophy major and you were into politics for a while too.
Yeah. And I think this goes back to, you know, we had some fun and we're joking and I'm sure we're going to continue to do it, but the bridging the gap, you know, you mentioned, and I wholeheartedly agree, you're not an idiot, you know, it's not that you don't have the issue, or me explaining things isn't because, you know, whatever, it's just a lack of knowledge, right?
Right.
It's a gap.
Yeah, it's a gap.
And I think what makes you so open to those conversations is yoga. I think, you know, there's this philosophy in addition to it's a lifelong practice and that it has to be consistent and dedicated over a period of time, right? That's the Sutra. But it's also that you're a student, right? Like no matter, and that's emphasized. And if it hasn't been emphasized in your teacher training, let us emphasize it now. Being a teacher doesn't mean you stop being a student.
Oh my God, no. In fact, it means that you have the, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like the dedication or the foundation of always being in the beginner's mindset.
Yes.
Right? Because like, I remember having friends that would teach classes. They'd be super complicated, crazy flows. And I'm like, why? What's the point? If 3/4 of your class are failing and you aren't able to support them because those poses come easy in your body and you don't know what it feels like to be a beginner again on those postures, then why? Why are you doing it?
Right.
Why are you sequencing that way? Why are you trying to, you know, show off in some way? Like there's so many different parts of yoga that we talked about before that is consumerized, it's capitalized on. And so, you know, we have a tendency to use our egos when we teach you, and whether it's like, oh, how many people did you have in your class today? Or did you have a wait list for class today? Or did you take so-and-so's class? They're such a cool, you know, teacher, whatever. It's like, we need to remember that we have to be real. Like David said, I choose real. Real is I'm fucked up. You know, I got shit wrong with me. I'm going to say my rights and lefts wrong. I'm not going to be the most creative yoga instructor out there. I'm who I am, and I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think when you root yourself in the seat of a beginner, in a mindset of always learning, then this sutra comes very naturally.
Absolutely.
If you genuinely believe that there is something that you can learn, then your practice is going to continue to flow because you're looking for that knowledge.
Yep. And it comes on your mat. And I think that that's it. Hit your mat, people.
Yep.
When life gets hard, hit your mat. When life is going steadily, hit your mat. Just don't walk away from it. And if the walk away happens, you know, that's when you got to start digging deeper into other aspects of yoga that you can explore.
Well, and if the walk away happens, why?
Yeah.
You know, what is it that you're avoiding? What is it that you're accommodating? What is it that you are working around, you know, and why is it taking you away from a practice that changes your life?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And you've experienced it. Like it's a taste of what's possible. David, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We can't wait to catch up with you again. Can't wait to see how you're doing, you know, in the next year, in the next 2 years, the next 10 years. Hopefully we're still doing this podcast in 10 years. That'd be fucking awesome.
That would be.
That'd be so cool. But like he had so many little funny lines that he said, and I just really had a very fun time interviewing someone that's been rooted in his practice for a very long time.
Yeah. Everything is going to be linked in the show notes. David's personal site, Do Yoga With Me online, as well as their teacher training and CE courses. That's all in the show notes. But I do want to mention one more time those offers that are available to you as our listeners. The first is 1 month of unlimited access to DoYogaWithMe.com. There's a link in the show notes, and you will utilize code HYCML. You will choose the 1 month plan when signing up. Your first month is free, and after which you'll be automatically charged $13.99 per month, but you can easily opt out at any time. The other offer is for 20% off David's Let Go of Anxiety and Fear 21-day program. The link is in the show notes, and the code is HYCML. The code will work for both full pay plan. The code will work for both the full payment and monthly payment plan. David, we appreciate you sharing that with our listeners. I know I'm going to utilize it myself. And listeners, I would love to hear if you're taking part. We can share notes or something, or do some study buddy program. I don't know.
I love it. Well, and just so you guys know, because HYCML is how yoga changed my life. Hashtag it. Share it with your friends, and share back with us how you're doing on your yoga practice and your yoga journey. We always want to hear stories from you.
See you next week.
See you next time.
Bye, yogis.